From pulling guns for the pettiest offenses, greed and corruption, to straight-up sociopathy.
Somebody would be saying that I did this. I mean, we had a fight, and so I went and killed her. I mean, come on.
There have been quite a few incidents of female police officers that showcase that an abuse of power is not restricted by someone's gender. There are bad people everywhere, and the police aren't safe from either. So let's take a look at some of the worst female cops and what they've done. Rose Valentino, a 14-year-old veteran in the Cincinnati police, was fired after she had a racial outburst that was caught on her body cam. Valentino, who frequently appeared on the 2011 TLC reality TV series Police Women of Cincinnati, was apparently upset over traffic which caused her meltdown. While on duty in a marked police car on April 5th, Valentino went to the District 3 police station to complete a report. When she pulled into the driveway of the station, she saw several cars lined up waiting to pick up students from Western Hills University High School. Valentino then activated her lights and siren, signaling for the vehicles to move. When they didn't, she became audibly angry. She put her window down and told the drivers to move when, according to the report, a black male student walked by and gave Valentino the middle finger. That's when things took a turn for the worse. Valentino got angry and could be heard on her body camera saying the N-word slur in response to the teenage student.
Her cruiser's window, she uses the N-word.
This obviously did not go over well, and she was subsequently fired from her position as a police officer. In her defense, Valentino stated that she does not have any racial biases that have affected her work, and told investigators she does not use racial slurs. She said that this was a one-off incident and that her anger that day was specifically targeted towards the teenager. However, this wasn't Valentino's first brush with trouble. Earlier in 2020, she was charged with domestic violence and criminal damage following a fight with her sister. She pleaded not guilty, but her police powers were suspended, and she was assigned to an administrative assignment. The charge was eventually reduced to disorderly conduct, and the court ordered her to take anger management classes and sentenced her to 2 years probation. 2 years later, her profanity-filled outburst over something as small as traffic proves that she still does not have full control over her emotions. The interim police chief, Teresa Thied, had sent a recommendation of Valentino's termination to the city officials. The recommendation was approved, and Valentino was subsequently dismissed from her position. In her statement, Teresa Thied said, "This type of hateful speech will not be tolerated by anyone who works for the Cincinnati Police Department, sworn or civilian." A huge sex scandal has rocked the small town of Laverne, Tennessee. This story follows patrol officer Megan Hall of the Laverne Police Department, who was fired along with 4 other officers after she became engaged in steamy romps with these officers on and off duty. Those involved include patrol officers Juan Lugo Perez, Lewis Powell, Detective Seneca Shields, and Sergeant Henry Ty McGowan, while 3 other officers including Patrick Magliacco, Larry Holliday, and Gavin Schoberl were suspended after the investigation. It all started when Laverne Mayor Jason Cole received a tip that one of the officers, Megan Hall, was having affairs with several of her fellow cops. The investigation that followed revealed some jaw-dropping details. Magliacco admitted to having sex with Hall on numerous occasions and also revealed that Hall had kissed his wife, Amy, after learning they had an open marriage. During the investigation, Magliacco revealed that he and his wife had been in an open relationship with Hall since the spring of 2022. He further mentioned that Hall's husband caught them in the act with his wife, and he did not seem on board with the situation. Officer Lewis Powell was also incriminated by Magliacco. Magliacco told investigators about Hall telling him about Powell's big black D and revealing that they had had oral sex while on duty. Powell, who is married, initially denied having any relations with Hall several times. He claimed that everybody knows she has multiple partners, but after realizing that there was no way out for him, he finally confessed. Detective Seneca Shields denied having any relations with Hall at first, but upon further pressing by the investigators, buckled and admitted that they had engaged in oral sex in the department's gym while on duty. Magliacco even revealed that he had once caught Hall and Holliday kissing while at a football party at Holliday's place. Holliday, however, did not agree. He told investigators that he had once invited Hall and other officers to his home to watch football, and there was heavy drinking, but he claims that nothing happened at the party. The officer later admitted to having sexual relations with Hall multiple times, saying that they would meet in hotel rooms for their liaisons. Officer McGowan also admitted to going to Hall's house with another female and exposing his genitals. But the juiciest parts of this whole scandal happened at a Memorial Day hot tub party at a boathouse. The party was a Girls Gone Wild style event hosted by Officer Stats at the boat he owned. The department's police officers weren't the only ones invited to this party though, their wives and children were too. During the party, Magliacco was forcing vodka down Hall's throat in the hot tub moments before she took her top off. According to another officer, Officer Durham, Stats jumped at Hall. He stopped her from drinking and quickly covered her up in order to protect her. Both Durham and Stats claimed that they never had any inappropriate relations with Hall. During the investigation, Hall initially denied having any illicit affairs with the men in her department except for Holiday, but she did confess to sending nude images to other officers on shift, including Holiday, Magliacco, and Officer Schoberl, according to the report. Hall also confirmed that she had sexual relations with Powell and Juan Lugo Perez. Lugo initially denied committing any appropriate acts with Hall, but Hall ended up copping to her affair with Lugo in a motel after they met at a go-kart center. At the end of the whole probe into this scandal, Hall unsurprisingly ended up getting canned from her position in the department. Lugo, Powell, Shields, and McGowan were also fired for violating police procedure and lying during the investigation, while Holiday, Magliacco, and Schoberl were suspended from their position.
I know what most people are saying. You know, you could have said no. I get it. But my response to them is that I did say no, and he wouldn't take it for an answer.
This case involves a murder fueled by love, jealousy, and borderline obsession. On February 24, 1986, Dr. Nels Rasmussen's daughter Sherry was brutally murdered in her Van Nuys condo in LA. She was shot 3 times, brutally bludgeoned, and left for dead. It was a devastating loss for her family, especially her father and her husband of 3 months, John Rutan. Sherry was incredibly close to her father. Before her death, she had already informed her father that she felt someone was stalking her and that her life might be in danger. That someone was an LAPD officer named Stephanie J. Lazarus. Sherry's death left her father devastated, and he would not rest until her daughter's murderer was put behind bars. But despite everything Sherry told her father before, the leading detective on the case refused to listen to Dr. Rasmussen's suspicions. The detective chalked up Sherry's murder to a botched robbery attempt. Not just that, but during the investigation, any evidence that suggested otherwise was simply brushed aside. Many people believe that this was done deliberately by the police to protect one of their own. But what was the motive behind this brutal murder? Well, all of it comes back to Sherry's husband, John Rutan. John and Stephanie had quite a bit of history together before John ended up marrying Sherry. The pair had been together in UCLA and graduated in 1982. They weren't exactly college sweethearts, but did have a complicated on-again, off-again sort of relationship. Later on, John ended up meeting Sherry Rasmussen. Sherry was quickly rising up in position at her workplace and was already a director of nursing at Glendale Adventist Medical Center. The two of them hit it off right from the start and got married in 1985. But even though Rutan had sort of moved on from his past relationship, that did not mean that Stephanie did also. She was a constant third wheel in the couple's relationship, and despite Sherry's reservations, John could never fully let go of Stephanie. Rutan and Stephanie had even hooked up one final time right before he got married to Sherry, apparently for closure. But Lazarus's obsession with John did not stop, and it began to get scary when he showed up at Sherry's workplace one day to tell her, "If I can't have John, no one else will." On the day of the murder, Sherry had called in sick from work. John, however, had gone to work as usual. When he returned home, he found a gruesome scene. Broken objects everywhere, a bloody handprint next to the panic button, and Sherry's lifeless body on the living room floor. The police found a bite mark on Sherry's arm and took a swab for DNA analysis. Back then, however, the DNA testing equipment wasn't advanced enough, and so the case eventually went cold. But the case was reopened after 23 years when the LAPD got better technology. The DNA analysis of the bite mark revealed that the suspect was a woman. The detectives who were on the case found Stephanie Lazarus's name in the files and decided to pursue her. In May 2009, the investigators obtained a sample of Lazarus's saliva from a discarded coffee cup to compare it with the cotton swab. The results were a match. Stephanie was eventually interrogated, booked, and finally taken to trial. While at the trial, prosecutors claimed Lazarus's actions were fueled with jealousy when her former lover Rutan decided to marry Rasmussen. The Superior Court Judge Robert Perry sentenced Lazarus to a term of 25 years to life for first-degree murder and an additional 2 years for personal use of a firearm. This put an end to a 2-decade-old case, and justice was finally served for the Rasmussen family.
Well, I think I'm going to say that I think she was a nurse. I mean, I can't remember how he said he met her. I mean, it's been so long ago.
This just goes to show you that there are corrupt people across all genders. While we think of the police as our saviors, sometimes they end up being the ones to hurt us. So let us know what you think of these female cops in the comments below.